Hello, my name is Wahaj Mandavia, and I'm here invited to actually speak about some APA issues that we find with theses and dissertations. First off, thank you for having me, and let's get this going. Alright, first off, basically where I work right now is the Office of Research and Education and Human Services, which it's a voluntary service that we have for students, which anybody who has a thesis or dissertation can send their thesis and dissertation to us, and we'll look at it for many things, such as APA methodology, research design, statistics, and plagiarism. APA is what I particularly do, as well as the other GAs that are there, but we have some professors that work with us, with Dr. Henley, Dr. Denson, and Dr. Plata, who look at methodology and research design, as well as statistics. Plagiarism is an overall looking over thing that we do, which I'll talk more towards the end of this lecture. We're looking at Ed North 126, so if you guys need me, we can, if you guys need to just walk in and drop something off, that's fine. But we also have an email, coes@tamuc.edu. Is our email, so if you want to send in your thesis or dissertation, you can send it over there. We also have a website, tamuc.edu/coehs Office of Research, and that'll give you all our information as well. So, that being said, alright, so before we get into this entire what we find common errors, the one I'm going to talk about right now is basically how we got these numbers that we did. We looked at 18 cases that we looked at in the spring and fall. We just picked out 18 cases that we did APA work on. It's shown in percentages, and it's going to cover the percentage reflects the amount of documents that we had that particular type of error. So basically, if it's a certain percentage, is the amount of documents out of those 18 that had that error. Basically, the types of error we're going to be looking at is graduate template formatting, levels of heading, content problems, grammar and punctuation, definition of term, if the data is being treated as plural, citation, quote format, table and figures references, and tense. So if you're using past tense or not. Alright, so the first one we're going to look at is grammar. In 83.33, so 83% of these documents that we looked at had problem with grammar. That includes, well, it has an entire list right here, comma, semicolon, colons, dash, single, double quotations, parentheses, hyphens, capitalization, italics. Numbers are actually expressed correctly as numerals, abbreviation, acronyms, and proper punctuation and syntax throughout. So basically, are you using correct grammar? Are you looking at it? Are you writing it up right? Are you using commas correctly? That includes the Oxford comma, semicolons, colons, all that fun stuff. And hopefully I'm going to get this out to you guys as well, which is going to be basically has where it's cited within the APA manual if you need to look at it. That way it make it easier for you if you need to reference anything. 72% had problems with the graduate template format, which is a template the graduate school requires you to follow when working on your thesis and dissertation, and which is something big, and which is one of these, it covers APA within there as well, but it also has its own checklist, which also I'll have a link later on for. For that, as well as for your thesis and dissertation, they're similar, but there's also a difference, and there's also a checklist for both that they cover, which includes all of these, which is where we used to get, because we use the same APA checklist as the graduate school does, so that's where we're getting some of this information. Basically, is your page is formatted correctly? Would it be your front page, basically the title, signature, abstract, everything, and spacing, font, and margins? Remember, as far as the abstract goes, that's the only page that used 2-inch margin at the top instead of the 1-inch margin like everywhere else. Table font, context is formatted correctly. Remember, it has all the dots following your statement, leader dots have to end at the same point, and the numbers line up as well as by places. It also has a list of tables and figures if you have list tables and figures. Once again, oh sorry, I apologize, 2.5 inches for the abstract. Margins are 1 inch all around. It's double spaced throughout, even between paragraphs. Sorry. The bottom of the title page, the abstract title, and captions for figures and tables are all single spaced, otherwise the entire document needs to be double spaced. Page numbers are numbered and positioned correctly, which means top right corner. Text is adjusted to the left margins. We haven't really seen that much of a problem with that, but it is one of the things that they do check for. Some of the main ones we see as problem goes is table contents being formatted correctly. We haven't had really a problem with margin except for when it came to the abstract, because it was one of those few ones that you have to have differently. Appendices have been difficulty being formatted because just the way it is. Remember, it has its own little section page instead of just having a subheading. It has its own little page and then that. And once again, this kind of stuff is also in the thesis and dissertation templates that they have online. Chapter 1, research questions, they're all capitalized and referred to in text. So when you're basically, there's a title, but when you're actually referring to, chapter 1 and chapter 2, which is basically, there's a part at the end of chapter 1 which covers, this is the format, basically chapter 1 is going to cover this, chapter 2 covers this, chapter 3 covers this, chapter 4. Make sure to capitalize those correctly. Same thing with research question and figures. And once again, some of these are with the graduate school ones and a lot of this APA formatting. Citation and quotes. 78% of these basically have a problem. Basically, when you're multiple sources have to be capitalized correctly and in alphabetical order is another one. So they're alphabetized, they're formatted correctly. You have to have your periods right, your signs, everything like that. One of the big ones we see with this one is that basically the format's wrong. Not that people are quoting correctly, but the format's wrong, especially when using et al. Sometimes people forget the period or they're using it incorrectly, which is what we're going to cover next. Okay, so right now quotations is 61% of them have problems. Direct quotation, basically 40 words. Less than 40 words are incorporated into the paragraph. Remember, anything more than 40 words has its own separate block, according to APA. Which has a whole section about quoting and how to quote correctly, stuff like that. Citations are provided for the work of individuals. Basically, so you are actually citing stuff instead of just plagiarizing. And they're only using last names. There's no copyright infringement. And that way you're able to at least not plagiarize, and that's one of the things we do check, is basically, sometimes like you'll be able to, when you actually see plagiarizing for the most part. The entire wording is different, everything like that, and when we do see that, we go through and check and see if it's plagiarized or not. So basically, if you're using something that looks out of place, or something that you've written or anything, we'll take that and we'll look for it just to help you out. So it's not any problem from our side. It's just so it helps you know, because sometimes it happens. I'm not saying plagiarism happens just like that, but sometimes accidentally or something like that, or you're trying to paraphrase and not paraphrasing correctly. One of the least ones we see is authors not being referred to by last name. I think I've maybe seen it once, which is that's actually that's a good thing. One of the bigger ones that I do see is that when they have 40 words or more, they're not blocked off. So that making like that does violate APA, and one of the things that they do look for when you turn in your thesis and or dissertation. Tables and figures, 33% of those had problems. Tables are formatted correctly, basically including spacing. Tables and figures are the biggest problem that we do see are basically these top 4, if that makes sense. Top 3, this is just a repeat, I apologize for that. But basically if the tables are split between pages, that ends up becoming a problem. Because that technically, once again, becomes a problem with APA. One of the biggest problems that we see with formatted tables is that they're just not formatted correctly at all. They're either correct or not correct at all. So that becomes one of those things. Same thing with figures. Figures, not as many, but tables is a lot more, because a lot of people use more tables than they do figures. Statistics, once again, we have our Dr. Denson is our statistics expert, and she does look at these, and that way it will look and make sure your statistics are correctly, or are you using the right stuff, everything like that, and are you mentioning it correctly. Alright, so one of the other stuff is levels of heading. 44% of those, so basically almost 1 out of 2 have problems with levels of heading, which is in the APA manual, and it will basically works down as there's levels of heading as you go through. So subsections it breaks down subsections into more levels of heading. That becomes basically the main thing for levels of heading. Content problems can cover just about anything as far as what you're writing. Does that make sense? Is this wrong? 44%, basically, once again, 1 out of 2, have problems with content. Basically, this doesn't make sense. Why do you have this here? This is redundant, this, that. Which is basically not just us saying it, like we'll find it and we can bring it up to our supervisor who's over the methodology and everything like that, who will actually tell us if that makes sense or not, which is confirming if we were right or wrong, just to make sure it's not just us saying something. It's actually something like somebody who actually more expertise than we are being able to help you out. So it's more about making sure like it's coming from the right places. There are sometimes people who have problems working with that graduate students say this instead of like doctorate students. Data being treated as plural is within basically 1 out of 3 is not that, like basically it comes down to if you do it right or wrong. It's data like it's basically it's how it's written in the it's in the manual, everything. Proper tense is being used. Basically, you got to be discussing past tense. So when you're writing it, don't write it as if you're going to do something. Write it as if you've already done it, and that's what you're going to be turning in. Not that I'm going to do this, which is 16%, but it's still in there. This entire thing is dedicated to references. 1 out of 2 had every source cited in text listed in references. Basically, what we do when we finish a paper, we go to the reference section and we compare what sources have been mentioned, which ones haven't. Because sometimes you'll find references that are in the paper that aren't in the reference section, but and we also see vice versa. So basically, 1 out of 2 have that. One of the other ones is sources that are listed in alphabetical order and formatted correctly. One of the biggest problems we see with formatting is that second line, it has to be just a little bit more tabbed in a little bit, which you can do with the ruler on top. Sources, citations are provided for the work of those individuals. Basically, once again, making sure that the citations are provided, that you are crediting people's work for what they are. Alright, so breaking it down even more to summarize this is basically how it works out. 13 out of 18 did this, 15 out did this. And it's broken down into what has been done, what hasn't been done. What I'm going to do now is actually I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that we see, some of the problems that we have. One of the bigger problems that we do have is one of the things that we see that's not covered in our APA checklist is inconsistencies between Chapter 1 and Chapter 3 or Chapter 2 and everything like that, which is something to look at. Another one being sometimes it does come up that there is some methodological issues that we do find. If you just hold on 1 second, let me grab something to read off for you guys that we do have. One of the things that I didn't cover right now is basically definition of terms. The problem with definition of terms is that sometimes one of the things that says in most cases that you do, there are very few exceptions to the rule, but in most cases you have to give every definition of term a citation. Make sure, and that comes into making sure it's formatted correctly too, because sometimes you don't write it in paragraph, it's more of a list, a definition, what it means, source, definition, what it means, source, and that works too. Pages, levels of heading, which I did cover, and bold subheadings. So basically a lot of people don't bold their subheadings. Those are the two basically I would want to talk to. The website for the graduate school template and the APA checklist that we use as well as the graduate school is tamuc.edu/academics/graduate school, and there should be a link for thesis and dissertations. If you click on that, it will give you all the forms you need to fill, the APA checklist that we use as well as the graduate school, the templates that they want you to follow, and everything that you would need to basically go with it. And I think they also have a section for IRB as well as other forms as well. One of the last things I do want to talk about is basically, I did touch on a little bit throughout, is basically copywriting and plagiarism. That is a habit of a very serious thing. And just to make sure, be careful about that. You don't think people will know, but people will know. And that's a quick little plug on that one. Last but not least, I want to thank you guys for having me here. I enjoyed giving this talk, and if there's any questions, please feel free to talk to me afterwards. And also, once again, if you do need to email us or anything, it's coehsreview@tamuc.edu, and just be like, hey, I want you guys to look at it for methodology or research design, statistics, APA, plagiarism, anything that you think would help beneficial for you. It's a voluntary service and it's absolutely free. So feel free to email us. And with that, thank you so much. Have a nice day.